friends, we are back for the next session of The One and Only Bob. I had such a fun time reading yesterday because I really missed the voices of these characters, and I really missed Bob and his sassy attitude and his ability to be very blunt but very funny. I'm excited to see what happens with this book because, Ruby and Ivan really did get their happy ending, but we're not too sure if Bob got that happy ending as well. So I'm hopefully excited to see that he does receive that happy ending and does learn that there are humans in the world who do love dogs and do take care of dogs with so much heart and so much love, because that is what he deserves. If you are following along with us, we are on page 17. If you can't follow along because you don't have the book, no worries, I gotcha. We left off on Bob talking a little bit about how he was abandoned on the highway when he was a puppy, and I am going to assume that we're going to continue with that topic because the start of this page is titled Early Days. I don't remember much about my early puppy days. It was 3 years ago, but sometimes it feels like 300. Mostly, I recall fighting with my sibs for the promo meal spot, so sibs meaning his siblings. Lots of squirming and squeaking, everything soft and milk-smelling and movable, like we were one great big, complicated animal. I never met my dad, and my mom didn't say much about him except that he was trouble. Mom had a beautiful fawn coat, Chihuahua, some this, some that, nice, messy bloodline. Mutts rule. Mom crooned to us, told us stories, laid down the law. I wonder if she knew she didn't have much time to prepare us for the world. We were born in a dark place, probably under some porch stairs, I suspect, since I remember the sound of boots plodding up and down and biting the ugly smell of human feet. They called my mom Rio, and they fed her most days, though sometimes she had to fend for herself. She never showed fear toward them or respect. Indifference, I guess you'd say, unless they tried to handle one of us. She growled then, hoping to make it clear that we were hers and hers alone. I myself got picked up a couple times. The hands reached in, grabbed. They were rough and smelled of strange scents, bitter and meaty. My mom's growl made me fearless, and I wiggled and yipped. The hands shoved me back into the warm place where I could sleep and drink and dream in safety. Still, I understood, in my simple puppy way, that dogs belonged to humans, and that was how it would always be. Boss. My mom wasn't much for names. She had a lot of letters. I guess she'd run out of ideas. My brother, First, that was his name, was Natch, the firstborn. Runt, my youngest bro, was the last. Dot had a little spot on her back, and Yip was always complaining. I was named Rowdy. Goes without saying, and that left my oldest sister. We called her Boss. Boss was small but mean, with a distinctive sharp-sounding bark. She could outmaneuver any of us to the best spot for dining. I admired her grit, even if she did get on my nerves. When we got a bit older, less blind, more cocky, I fought her off occasionally, but mostly Boss won. She was fearless, that pup. Alone. The truck happened without warning one night. They threw us in a box, left my mom behind. I can still hear her frantic howls. I landed in a muddy ditch. It was a coldy night, nearly freezing. Even the moon had abandoned me. And the smells. Everything so wild and unknown. Animals with big jaws and bigger appetites. Birds that swooped in to kill. Death and life all mixed up together. I searched for my siblings until the truth became clear. I was utterly alone. Cars. The next morning I began my slow journey, moving through the tall, wet grass, my limbs stiff from the cold. Now and then I drink from a mud puddle or gnaw on some grass. By evening I was wobbly with hunger and thirst. I followed the highway. Every time a four-wheeler creature roared by, I froze in fear, and yet this is what slays me. I knew that cars meant humans, and humans meant the possibility of living, just as much as they meant the possibility of dying. The owl. Darkness had fallen when it came out of nowhere. The owl. A shadow in a shadow. They don't make a sound, not a sound. It's quite impressive when you think about it. So right now, Bob is telling us the story of what happened to him after he was thrown out of the truck and taken away from his family. Look, just as her talons, those marvelous weapons, racked my fur, I caught my right front foot in a small hole and stumbled. If she'd gotten hold of my body, I wouldn't be here. But all she managed to do was grab my tail. Only time in my life I regretted my handsome hind knickers. I was airborne, hanging upside down, dizzy and dazed, and just crazy enough to think, hey, I'm actually flying, before the terror hit full force. I caught a whiff of other animals below. Later I found out they were pocket gophers. But back then I just knew I was smelling something completely foreign. The owl must have decided that gophers would make a more satisfying meal. She let loose her grip, and I plummeted to earth. Oh my gosh, that was a close call. More luck. Maybe it was my puppy fat or my soft bones or my incredible good fortune, but I didn't die. Didn't even break anything. I'd flown twice in my short life and lived to tell the tale. Will. I found a small hollow at the base of a fallen tree, poked my nose in and got a swat and a hiss from a grouchy raccoon. Kept going, waddling, whimpering. Lights ahead. New strange smells. Kept going, kept going. It's amazing how much the sheer will not to die can keep you moving. Exit 8. I finally came to a small road curving off the main highway. Exit 8. Turned out to be a big billboard overhead had a picture of a terrifying animal on it. Of course, I didn't know what a billboard was, didn't know that the scary animal was a gorilla, let alone that he could become my dearest friend. But something told me to follow the off-ramp, and eventually I ended up at the Exit 8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade, home of the one and only Ivan. History. I made it to the mall, slept in dirty hay by some garbage bins. The next night, I found that hole in Ivan's cage, stole his banana, slept on his belly, and the rest, as they say, is history. For 2 years, I lived at the seedy old place that was part mall, part circus, and all crummy. But that was nothing compared to Ivan. He spent 27 lousy years there. And our dear friend Stella, an old circus elephant, was stuck there for most of her life too. When Stella passed away, it nearly broke Ivan's heart. We tried like crazy to get him through those dark days, but what really saved him, I think, was Ruby, our baby elephant friend. Before Stella died, Ivan promised her he'd get Ruby out of that awful place. And to my amazement, he actually pulled it off. Ivan and Ruby and a bunch of our other pals ended up going to different places, zoos and sanctuaries that knew how to take care of them. So we know that there's humane zoos, but another place is called a sanctuary, and a sanctuary is a place where really abused animals can go that have absolutely no ability to intermingle back with animals of their kind. So Ivan was able to do that, and Ruby was too, but some animals, they've been in captivity for so long they have to go to a sanctuary, where it's just them, but they obviously have a lot more room to live, better conditions, and situations like that. They're with others of their own kind, and they're loved and well cared for. It's been over a year now since we all moved, and they seem much happier. Me, I lucked out. My girl, Julia, whose dad had worked at the mall, decided her family needed a dog. So who was I to argue? 2 square meals, my own bed, and all the belly rubs I could beg for. What dog in his right mind would say no to that? So now we know Bob ended up with Julia, and that's really cool. I thought maybe she just brought him there to visit, but they actually live together. The best part is we don't live far from Ivan and Ruby. I get to see him all the time. I'm glad they're nearby, and I'm thrilled they've settled in so well. Really, it's a solid solution. But it's not a perfect one. Tennis ball. The way I understand things is like this. We live on a lonely ball called Earth, and humans have basically been throwing it against the wall for so long that the poor old ball is falling apart. It's like me with a tennis ball, chewing away until it's nothing but pieces of slimy rubber that tastes like, well, slimy rubber. And that means that there aren't as many places left for wild animals. Seems there are good zoos and good sanctuaries and bad sanctuaries, just like there are good dog families and bad dog families. The good places are trying to keep wild species healthy and safe. They don't want endangered animals to go away forever. They also don't want the earth to turn into a slimy, dilapidated tennis ball. Although, honestly, slimy rubber doesn't taste half bad. You should try it sometime. The thing is, I would give anything to see my dear pal Ivan deep in the jungles of Africa, where he was born, or to see Ruby running across the savannah with a herd of elephants, her big old ears flapping in the wind. I'd give up a mile-high pile of bacon cheeseburgers to see that happen, I really would. But it ain't happening, I get that. And so do they. When you're an animal, it helps to be realistic. We're going to stop there. We're going to get up to part 2, and we'll read that tomorrow. So this is a very interesting take. When we read The One and Only Ivan, I had already read it, and I knew what was going to happen. But with The One and Only Bob, I don't know what's going to happen. So we are reading this like completely together and navigating this all together. To be honest, I thought this was going to be about Bob's journey, how he finds a safe place to live, but now we know he's with Julia. But it's a very interesting conversation that Bob is having with you as a reader, and this is something that I obviously already know because I'm very interested in animal treatment, and I try to teach you all about animal treatment and why it's important that we advocate for it. It's a very hard topic because some do, just like he said, some zoos are great and some are humane, and some sanctuaries are great and humane, but some aren't, and some zoos aren't. And it all comes down to people in the world advocating for those animals and their situations. And Ivan and Ruby are in a wonderful place that is humane, but Bob's saying that he believes that they should be in Africa where they belong, in a jungle, and Ruby in a savannah running around with her ears flapping, and that's what he envisions for him. But he's just a dog. So we're going to see what this little Chihuahua mutt has up his sleeve as we keep navigating through this amazing, fun, and silly book. Yesterday I asked you what you thought was going to happen, and today I'm going to see what you think is going to happen after you just learned that Bob is safe in a home that loves him, but he has this new kind of goal for his friends. So make sure you respond on our Flipgrid, and I can't wait to see what you think. I'll talk to you tomorrow.